Okay, folks, so now we're going to look at some questions where we have to decide whether or not it'd be a good idea to use the cosine law to find a missing side or to find a missing angle. Okay, so that's the kind of stuff we're looking at now. So we're going to look at understanding the cosine law and identifying those geometric patterns and sketching triangles, etc., that help us do all of that. All right, so that's what we're up against for these few questions we're going to look at now. So the first one says, which triangle could you use the cosine law to determine angle theta? So let's remember the two versions we have of the cosine law. First one says c squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine c. And that's the one we're going to use if we're finding a missing side. And the other version was cosine of angle c is equal to a squared plus b squared minus c squared, all divided by 2ab. And that's the one we want to use if we're finding angle. So let's see, whatever angle, in this case it'd be angle C. All right, so in this case, for this question, I should say, we're trying to figure out an angle. So remember, when I go to use the version of the cosine law I need to find an angle, I need to know 1, 2, 3, all the sides. I don't need to know any other angles. So any part of a triangle here that gives me an angle is not really helpful. None of this stuff right down here, none of these 52-degree angles and any of these options are going to be helpful to me at all if I'm trying to use the cosine law to find an angle. I need to know three sides, and you'll also notice for those three options that I only get two sides. I don't know that third side for any of them. So without that third side, I'm not going to be able to have enough information to use my cosine law formula. This one up here, part A, that's the only correct one. I've got three sides, pick my angle, and away I go. So it's got to be option A in that one. All right, so not a big deal there. This one's a little trickier because we actually have to sketch the triangle. So we're going to draw an acute triangle as good as we can. Just freehand here, rough it out a bit. And it says, for a given triangle, use the following information. Sketch the triangle and determine if the cosine law could be used to find the length of side C. All right, so let's put some labels on this, an A, B, C for those, and then we'll put an A, B, C on the sides as well. And then we're going to put on that diagram some numbers. So we know that side A is 7.9 meters. So this one is 7.9 meters here. And side B is 8.3 meters. So here we've got 8.3 meters. And angle C is 77 degrees. So that's this guy down here. That one's 77 degrees. So we're using this to find the length of side C if we can. So we remember that looks like C squared is A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times cosine of angle C. So if I'm going to find side C, I need to know the values of A and B for their sides, and I have to know angle C. And in this case, I do have all of those things. I know the length of side A, I know the length of side B, and I know what angle C is down here. So all of that helps me figure out what side C is. Remember, geometrically, when we talk about that, we look for that pattern. And the pattern actually says you have to have side angle side, or two sides, like A and B here, which we know, and their included angle, angle C. Some of my students a couple of years ago nicknamed this the sandwich pattern. If you're going to use cosine law to find a missing side, you have to have the two sides, which they called the slices of bread, and then the angle in between them. So the stuff that goes in the sandwich. So if that helps you remember it, maybe. Otherwise, it's just kind of silly, I guess. So let's have a quick summary of all the things we saw here. It says the cosine law is just a more general version of the Pythagorean theorem, as we saw, right? So what we did in this section was we used our ideas about diagnosing whether or not we can use the cosine law based on side angle side. That helps us get that missing side. So we have to have two sides and their included angle right here. And if we know all three sides, we can use the cosine law to find any angle we like. So that's that side, side, side pattern. Okay? So in the next session, we'll actually look at how do we use the cosine law to numerically and algebraically figure out what those answers are. Okay? Good luck.